All right, let's speak now to the Chief Land Claims Commissioner on Restitution of Land Rights, Nomfundo Ntloko, and Lead Principal Investigator on the SALDRU's Land Restitution Evaluation Study, Dr. Malcolm Keswell. Let me thank you so much for your time. I'll start with you, Ms. Ntloko. What were your overall impressions of this particular study?
Good.
All right, I think
I got disconnected.
Okay, let's try again. Let's see if we can hear you.
I hope you can hear me. I got disconnected for a little bit.
We can hear you now.
But thank you very much. I didn't necessarily hear a question, but I hope that Professor.
So I was asking your overall impressions of the study.
I think that I would like to hand over to Professor Keswell, who is the lead in the study, and so that he gives his own personal professional assessment.
So I will get to him.
Okay.
I will get to him in just a moment.
Okay.
But I want to start with you as the recipient of the study. What were your overall impressions?
Okay. Thank you very much. I think that overall, I think the outcomes were quite positive and encouraging. And they give us an opportunity to evaluate where we are as a country in terms of restitution and what we can possibly do to change policy so that we enhance the work that we do. But overall, it says to us that restitution as a mandate is working and is doing its intended purpose, which is about restoring dignity to the people who are dispossessed of their land.
And Dr. Keswell, one of the things that some people were looking at is that from 2018 as the study began and now it's 2024, some say that the pace was somewhat slow. What do you say about that investigation?
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on the show. So our work was about the impact of the restitution program for beneficiaries. Issues that have to do with how quickly claims get settled, and the actual process of restitution. That was not something that we looked at at all. In fact, coming out of a process that did look at that way back, I think it was in 2013, one of the recommendations from that so-called process evaluation was that the Commission think about doing an impact evaluation, and that's where we came in. So the work actually started as way back as 2014, and back then, essentially, the government approached the International Initiative for Impact Evaluation, which is an international body, grant-making body that works with governments in middle-income countries and low-income countries to do evidence-based policy making with a central focus on impact evaluation. So 3IE or IIIE, the International Institute for Impact Evaluation, was approached by the government to help figure out the scope of an evaluation that could be focused on the restitution program.
Yeah.
And so they essentially put out a competitive call internationally, and my organization, the Southern Africa Labour and Development Research Unit at the University of Cape Town, put in an application. Ultimately, we were selected, and thereafter spent 2 years, 2014 to 2016, effectively designing the study. So the work didn't get underway in earnest until 2017. And what we found essentially is, so the work focuses on, for beneficiaries that have received restitution, what can we detect in terms of how their lives have changed?
And Dr.
So
Keswell,
it focuses on that question.
Pardon me for coming in there. There's something else that you found that I'd like us to talk about before we even lose time, is that the land dispossession, and I'm going to borrow from the statement earlier, the land dispossession not only constrained the economic prosperity of black people, but also broke families, alienated communities, and entrenched a deep-rooted trauma and impoverishment of generations to come. And this is one of those things that, a lot of people talk about when it comes to redress, and especially the importance of land in this particular context. Is this a conversation that we are having enough as a country when we look at this aspect of dispossession?
Well, I think this study affords us the opportunity to actually have that deep conversation with some real evidence for the first time. The study essentially focuses on three important domains. One is whether it actually did improve household well-being and household welfare in general, so the economic side of it, but also the psychological outcomes. And as you mentioned, key principle in restitution as it's affected, or at least laid out in the Constitution and given expression to through the work of the Commission, key part of it is this idea of equitable redress. Yeah. And so what we try to do in this study is to look at the impacts we can detect for different award sizes of restitution, whether that comes in the form of land rights or whether it comes in the form of financial compensation. And what we found is that big awards have a really big impact. As high as about 36% if you're looking at per capita consumption, monthly per capita consumption. And these are long-term effects because in our sample we have data covering a 10-year period between 2013 and 2022 for all the restitution beneficiaries who are in the so-called treatment group, as compared to a control group who hadn't received restitution at the time that we did the data collection.
Quite an interesting, pardon me, quite an interesting, finding that you have there. And Ms. Ntloko, one of the things that, the study shows is that about 2.3 million people have benefited from restitution, and also saying that a total of 25 billion rand was spent on the purchase as well as the transfer of 3.9 hectares. And one looks at this, of course, these are strides that have been made, but when we take a step back to the Human Rights Commission, for example, holding its conference last year, looking at measures that have been taken to reflect on land restitution and redistribution. It also emerges that corruption, there's also fights among beneficiaries that have caused some of the delays as well. And I wonder how much of that is the department doing to also try and deal with some of these real delays on the ground?
Thank you very much. I think that those are important factors that are always under consideration. As you are aware, there was an investigation that was done by SIU through a proclamation by the president in 2012. And so that was part of the process of trying to make sure that as best as possible, we're able to clean up the process. We've standardized our processes. We're audited by the Auditor General, and we consistently have to report also to our internal audit. So those are issues that we're looking at quite closely to make sure that the money actually gets to the beneficiary. And in fact, what we've done so far is that on the old order claims, we've dealt with over 94% of the claims, and we've got about 6,000 that are outstanding. And those are mostly complex or matters that are in court. But we are continuing to refine our processes, including our business process, so that it's shorter than it was previously.
And as you say, these are issues that are still receiving consideration, and I hope we speak again, because this is quite an important aspect of where we find ourselves as South Africa 30 years on. And this study also, yes, very important part of the blueprint and what can be done to accelerate, as you say, some of what we've seen. But let me thank you both for your time. Do appreciate it. That is Chief Land Claims Commissioner, Commission on Restitution of Land Rights, Nomfundo Ntloko, and Lead Principal Investigator on the investigation on land restitution evaluation study, Dr. Malcolm Keswell.